Okay, so imagine this, right? You spent years, maybe even decades, dedicating yourself to becoming a doctor. You got the degree, you've honed your skills, and now you're dreaming.
Yeah.
Maybe practicing medicine in Australia. That vibrant, sunny landscape. It's an amazing goal. But then for a lot of international medical graduates, the IMGs, you run into this pretty big hurdle.
Yeah.
The Australian Medical Council exams, the AMC exams.
Oh, yeah, they have a reputation.
Exactly. They're known for being really rigorous, super time intensive, and honestly, a huge commitment. Money, time, effort. It can feel like a total roadblock sometimes. But what if? What if there was another way, a different route, maybe even a bit more direct? A path that actually recognizes the high standards of qualifications you already have. Well, today, that's what we're diving into, the Competent Authority Pathway, or CAP. Our mission here is to really unpack it. What is CAP? Who's it for? And crucially, why is it such a potential game changer for IMGs wanting to work down under? So what's the big draw straight away?
Well, what's really fascinating here, and honestly often a huge relief for doctors looking at Australia, is just how fundamentally different this pathway is. It's not just like a side door. It's basically Australia saying, look, we see the tough training you've already done in certain countries, and we trust it.
Okay.
And that recognition, it often means skipping years of extra study and exams, saving a ton of effort, personally and financially, compared to that standard AMC route. For many, it translates into getting into supervised practice and then, independent practice much, much faster.
That recognition really does sound like a lifeline. So let's get right into it. For someone hearing about this for the first time, what is the Competent Authority Pathway, like in simple terms?
Okay, simply put, the Competent Authority Pathway is a kind of fast track. Think of it like a dedicated lane on the highway for international doctors who've already done their medical degree and, importantly, postgraduate training in specific countries. Countries whose medical standards and checks are seen as, well, competent authorities by the Australian Medical Council. So if you qualify, the huge thing is you get to bypass sitting those big AMC exams, the written one, the clinical one, which, like you said, are notoriously difficult and take a long time to prepare for. Australia essentially recognizes what you've already achieved and fast tracks you towards working under supervision instead of making you prove all your basic medical knowledge again through their own exams.
Right. Bypassing the AMC exams,
Okay.
that's definitely the headline grabber for so many people. It's a massive difference from the usual, often really grueling AMC process.
Yeah.
And I guess there's always a but with these things. Who actually gets to use this direct route? Because I've heard it's, well, quite specific.
You're absolutely right. There is a pretty significant catch, this direct pathway. It's quite exclusive. As it stands, Australia only recognizes 5 countries where the medical authorities meet this competent standard.
Only 5, okay.
Yeah, just 5. So this means if you did your main medical degree or key postgraduate training and exams in one of these places, you might be eligible for CAP, and those 5 are the United Kingdom, Ireland, the United States, Canada, and New Zealand.
Okay, UK, Ireland, US, Canada, New Zealand.
Exactly. Now, the why behind those 5. Well, it often comes down to things like historical ties, really similar medical education setups, and comparable ways of regulating doctors. Australia feels confident that the quality control in these systems matches up well with its own.
Makes sense.
But, and this is super important for probably a lot of people listening, if your initial medical degree wasn't from one of those 5, then the direct CIP pathway isn't immediately open to you, which leads to the obvious question.
Yeah, what about everyone else?
Right.
And this, for me, is where it gets really interesting. It shows some serious strategic thinking by IMGs. Because if you didn't train in one of those 5 countries, it doesn't automatically mean Australia's off the table. Instead, a lot of doctors use what you might call a stepping stone strategy. Can you kind of break that down for us? What's the idea behind it? Are there downsides?
Yeah, the stepping stone strategy is, well, it's pretty clever, actually, and it really comes from necessity. For doctors whose training isn't from the UK, Ireland, US, Canada, or New Zealand, that direct CAP route to Australia is closed.
Right.
So what they do is strategically decide to go first to one of those 5 countries. They complete specific exams or training there. They use that country as a sort of interim step, maybe a temporary detour, you could say, specifically to become eligible for the competent authority pathway. Then they apply to Australia.
I see. So it's a 2-step process almost.
Exactly. Now, the trade-offs are definitely there. It often means more years spent doing exams or training in another new country first. You've got to navigate a different healthcare system, different visa rules, different licensing.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot.
It can be. A big investment of time and money, maybe time away from family or your original career path. But the potential payoff, especially when you weigh it against the uncertainty and sheer amount of prep needed for the AMC exams, is often seen as worth it. It can offer a more defined, sometimes quicker, and maybe ultimately more predictable route to actually practicing in Australia. It's like making a calculated long-term career investment.
A calculated long-term investment. I like that. It really shows the dedication, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, okay, if someone's thinking about this stepping stone idea, the details for each of those 5 countries become absolutely crucial. Could you maybe walk us through some of those country-specific requirements? Because I'm guessing they're not all identical.
No, absolutely not. They're quite distinct, and understanding those differences is key for anyone planning this. We should definitely break them down.
Okay, let's start with the United Kingdom. The UK seems like a really common stepping stone for many IMGs, historically anyway. What do you actually need to do there to qualify for CAP later on?
Right, the UK, it's definitely a popular one. The main path there usually involves two key things. First, you have to pass the PLAB exams. That's the Professional and Linguistic Assessments Board test. Checks your medical knowledge, your clinical skill.
PLF, got it.
Then, and this is crucial, you need to successfully complete the first foundation year of training. It's often called FY1, and it's done within the UK's National Health Service, the NHS.
Okay, so PLF plus FY1.
Exactly. The UK is popular because, well, its medical system is highly regarded, and that PLAB pathway is pretty well trodden for IMGs. The catch: getting one of those FY1 jobs can be competitive. And of course, you have visa hurdles to clear too, but the main insight, I guess, is that the UK offers a clear, structured path. It's demanding, no doubt, but many doctors have successfully used it.
Okay, structured but competitive. Makes sense. Now, moving over to Ireland, I heard this one's quite different.
Ireland really is unique in this context, very different. Unlike the UK or the US, there isn't a sort of standalone exam like PLAB or the USMLE that an IMG who graduates somewhere else can just take to get onto this pathway. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the Irish route specifically requires you to have graduated directly from an Irish medical school
Oh.
and then completed a 1-year internship within the Irish health system. It's incredibly specific. So if you got your primary medical degree outside Ireland, this particular KCAP stepping stone via Ireland, it's just not an option for you directly. Even if you somehow manage to get an internship there later, it's really tailored for those who've gone through the entire Irish medical education system from the start.
Wow, okay, that really narrows it down, highlights how vital checking the fine print is. Let's jump across the pond then, to the United States. What's the deal for using the US as your stepping stone towards Australian CHAP?
The U.S. pathway is, well, it's pretty substantial. It reflects how intense their training is. First off, you need to get ECFMG certification. That usually involves passing the USMLE exams, Step 1 and Step 2, plus other things like credential checks.
Right, the USMLE's big exams.
Huge exams. And then, this is the big part, you must complete at least 2 years of residency training in an ACGME accredited program. 2 years of U.S. residency.
Wow, yeah, minimum. And getting into an ACGME residency as an IMG, it's incredibly competitive. You typically need fantastic exam scores, maybe research experience, strong clinical background.
Looks like a massive undertaking.
It is. It's definitely a high stakes, potentially high reward route. But you're often looking at, 3, 4, 5 years just to complete those initial residency requirements before you can even think about making the move to Australia via CAP.
Okay, a serious long-term play then. What about Canada? How does that compare? Especially thinking about getting a residency spot there.
Canada also has a defined pathway. You need to pass the MCCQE part, that's the Medical Council of Canada qualifying examination, part 1.
Okay.
And then complete 1 year of postgraduate training. Similar structure in a way, however, and this is the really critical insight for Canada, finding a residency position there as an IMG is notoriously difficult.
Even harder than the U.S. maybe.
Often, yes, in terms of sheer number of spots available specifically for IMGs. Canadian residency programs strongly favor graduates from Canadian medical schools. The number of places open to IMGs is very limited, usually filled through a separate, highly competitive IMG match process. So while Canada is on the list of CSIC key countries, its particular residency system makes it a stepping stone that's, well, let's just say it often requires a very different approach, maybe more risk compared to the UK or even the US, where there are simply more IMG-friendly residency slots available, even if they are still competitive. For many IMGs, Canada might just not be the most practical stepping stone option because of that residency bottleneck.
That's a really important distinction. Good to know. Okay, lastly, let's look at New Zealand. Geographically, it seems like such a natural neighbor to Australia. What's the pathway there?
Yeah, New Zealand, the usual route there involves passing the NZR-YIX exam, the New Zealand Registration Examination.
NZR EZEX. Okay.
And then, similar to the UK's FY1, you need to complete a one-year rotating internship in New Zealand. So it offers a pretty clear, structured path. Exam, then practical training year.
Seems straightforward enough on paper.
On paper, yes. But like everywhere else, really, the competition for those crucial internship spots, especially for IMGs, has definitely been getting tougher over the last few years. So while it might seem like a natural fit because it's close by and culturally similar, you're still facing significant hurdles and tough assessment to actually secure that training place. Viable?
Yeah.
Yes. An easy ride. Probably not without real effort and preparation.
Okay, so you've navigated one of these paths. You've done the UK's PA Lab and FY1, or the USMLEs in residency, or NZREX in the internship. You've officially met the requirements through one of these competent authorities. What's the absolute next step for someone who wants to finally land in Australia and start working? You're nearly there, but not quite over the finish line, are you?
That's exactly right. You've done the really heavy lifting in that other country, but there are still a few key Australian steps to take. The very first thing you'll do is apply to the Australian Medical Board, the AHPRA, for provisional registration.
Provisional registration. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
That's basically your temporary license to practice medicine in Australia, but it always comes with a condition: you have to work under supervision for a period.
Right, supervision makes sense. And the provisional registration lets you actually look for a job then,
Yeah.
which is obviously vital.
Absolutely. Nailing down a job offer is the next critical piece. You need to find a position that fits the terms of your provisional registration.
And what else might pop up around then?
Well, sometimes, particularly if you're aiming for general practice, you might face an additional interview stage. We sometimes hear people call it, maybe half-jokingly, the pesky interview.
Oh, okay.
It's just another layer of assessment, really, checking your clinical communication skills, your fit for the Australian healthcare setting.
Gotcha. So provisional registrations, job offer, maybe an interview. Then what?
Then comes the really important bit in Australia, the period of supervised practice. Typically, this lasts for 12 months.
12 months. Okay.
And this is a really critical phase. It's not just about showing up and doing the work. It's about demonstrating your competence in the Australian context. Showing you understand the healthcare system there, you can work safely, effectively, within their specific environment. It's basically ensuring that even though your overseas training is recognized, you're properly integrated into how things work locally.
Makes sense. It's bridging the gap.
Precisely. And the ultimate goal, after you successfully complete that supervised year and meet all the other requirements, is achieving general registration. That's the ticket. That allows you to practice independently as a fully licensed doctor in Australia without needing direct supervision day to day. It's that final step to full autonomy.
General registration, that's the independence everyone's aiming for. The end goal. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together for you, our listener. The Competent Authority Pathway, CAP. It really is a direct, potentially much more streamlined alternative to tackling those big AMC exams. But crucially, it's specifically designed for IMGs who've already completed significant training or qualifications through the systems in the UK, Ireland, US, Canada, or New Zealand. And if you're thinking about that stepping stone strategy coming from a country not on that list, well, the paths most often considered, maybe the most practical ones, due to slightly clearer routes or maybe more IMG spots, tend to be the UK, the US, or New Zealand. Though, as we've definitely heard, each one comes with its own serious set of challenges and competition. And one last thing, maybe the most critical piece of advice running through all of this, whichever route you even think about: your English language skills. Strong communication isn't just for passing an exam like OET, it's absolutely fundamental for safe, effective, and compassionate patient care every single day. So what does all this really mean for you as you're maybe mapping out your own future path?
I think the key thing is that this pathway, if you understand it properly and plan strategically, really can streamline what's often a very long and complex journey for qualified doctors. It's basically Australia acknowledging that excellent medical training happens in other places too. Maybe the biggest takeaway, looking at all these options, is that for IMGs, the choice isn't just about finding the quickest route, it's about finding the route that's most strategically aligned with your long-term goals. You have to carefully weigh up the time involved, the costs, the specific hurdles, the competitiveness in each potential stepping stone country. It's really about making a properly informed decision, not just, following what someone else did.
That's brilliantly put. An informed, strategic decision. So, as you consider your own unique situation, your own journey towards practicing medicine in Australia, really think about which stepping stone, if you need one, might not just be a detour, could actually be a smarter, maybe more efficient path to where you ultimately want to be. What possibilities does that open up in your own planning? Perhaps it's about seeing the whole journey, not just the immediate next exam or application, and figuring out how each step really builds towards that dream of working as a doctor in Australia. And hey, for anyone focusing right now on nailing those essential English skills for pathways like these, just know that resources, like OET Bank, for example, are out there. They're specifically designed to help international doctors prep for the OET exam, and some even help healthcare professionals connect with clinical jobs abroad. It's all part of gathering the info you need to make the best strategic choice for your future.